cooperative identity, where it's bringing us in the future. I will start with introducing Pia, actually. Pia is the regional director of WeEffect in Latin America, but we both have a background in a total different way of working. We used to both be working in the area of children's rights before. That's where we met first time, I think, 10 years ago or something like that. So Pia, what do you expect from this webinar?
Well, I think it is. Well, I have just joined WeEffect a little bit, well, a year and a half ago only, and I am really fascinated with the organization, and I was not aware that it's sticking out so much with its cooperative identity, and I think it is fantastic. And however, I don't think we are really taking advantage of it and using it to the extent we should. So I hope that this will maybe spark a little bit of a discussion, a debate around it, and that people that come out from the meeting will feel that, yes, this is a cooperative movement and this is what I belong to. So that's my expectation. And you, Hans, to present you, I think everybody knows who you are. You are our man in Brussels at this point. But you have also been working for WeEffect before. You have been the regional director in Eastern Africa, and I look at you, and apart from being also our man in Brussels, I would say you are actually our representative into all the global cooperative movements that we belong to. So you are kind of I look to you as, wow, this is the man who knows everything about the movement I'm just learning to get to know. So I'm so happy to be able to do this seminar together with you, Hans. So what are your expectations of the seminar?
Well, I hope that we will have a discussion, and well, this is 1 hour we have today, but hopefully we can continue discussion afterwards on how can we sort of be a stronger part of the cooperative movement, because we are born out of the cooperative movement. And quite many of our partners are cooperatives, but if we look, for example, in our annual reporting from the regions and country offices, we don't talk so much about the cooperative identity. So I hope we can start a discussion on that. Okay, so let's now go out to our guest. We will just shortly introduce you, and then we will come back to you with questions. We can start with Simel, who is the head of the cooperative unit at the International Labour Organization in Geneva. Are you in Geneva now, or are you in? Yes, okay, brilliant. And then we have Marc Noël, who's Belgian, and he's the director of the project called Cooperatives for Development at the International Cooperative Alliance. Well, you're based in Brussels, but you live in Brussels as well, I guess. Yep, okay. And then we have Lotta Folkesson, who is the chair of WeEffect, but she's also the chair of the Women's Committee, the European Farmers at COPA. So you have several roles. And you have good Wi-Fi at home now, I understand, so that's also brilliant. And then we have Camilla, who actually, most of you know Camilla Lundberg as working for WeEffect, but she actually sometimes gets into a phone booth and changes dress and comes out as a superwoman working for the umbrella organization from the Swedish cooperative movement, the Cooperative Sweden. And then we should have also Gordon Hahn from Companion, but we're missing him. So he's the chairperson of the Companion, which is an organization that supports the startup of cooperatives in Sweden. So I think we're to skip him and see if he can come in later. But we will start with testing you. We will ask some questions to you. And the guest speakers can also answer if you really like to do it. We go to Slido here, and you can either use your smartphones and sort of point at that square so you get into the Slido, or you just go into slido.com, and there you will then use the pass numbers 10587, which you see in the bottom of the page. I hope you can see it. So the first question we would like to ask you is, how do you see WeEffects and We Agroforests work with cooperatives? Could we do more? Or we should work less with cooperatives? Or I honestly don't know, but maybe I will know more after this kickoff session. We have 6 people have answered. 9. 13. 14. Now there are more people than 14 in the room, so please go to slido.com.
Well, the super easy thing is actually to take down the to go with your iPhone or whatever phone you have over the, what do you call it in English? Q bar. What do you say?
I don't know what it's called actually. It has a name, but I'm not sure what it is.
28. Well, it's interesting to see how I don't know is kind of going down a bit.
Mm-hmm. Oh, there is actually 3%. That
QR
could be one
code,
person
exactly,
saying we should
exactly.
work less with cooperatives.
Yeah.
We will not find out who answers what because this is an anonymous poll. Okay, we will not spend too long time waiting. There's another question we will ask you before we head on into the dialogue with our guest speakers. Let's stop here at 39. So a majority, 82%, thinks we could do more. 15% doesn't know, but maybe they will know after this kickoff session, and 3% think that we should work less with cooperatives. We have another question to you, which is this one. I hope you got it on your screens now. Do you see WeEffect, We Agroforestry being a part of the cooperative movement? Yes, definitively. No, not at all. Somehow, but we could do more. So 77 for 23. Yes, 74. Okay. Okay, let's. You can continue voting while we go into the dialogue with our guest speakers. So I will stop sharing this part of the screen now. And has Gordon joined? Is anyone seeing Gordon here?
Maybe Gordon, if you are there, you can just say hi. It seems like
it's not here. So Pia, would you want to start with Simel then, or?
Yes, I can start with Simel. Perfect. Well, Simel, you are a person who know a lot about the situation of cooperatives. I mean, that's what you do every day. I don't know if it's 24/7, but a lot because you are representing ILO Coop, and ILO is one of the very important pillars, and one of the cooperative movement is an important pillar of ILO, International Labour Organization. From your perspective, can you give us some examples of a country or various countries where the enabling environment is brilliant for cooperatives, and why? And what does it mean?
Thank you, Pia. Can you hear me?
Absolutely, we hear you perfectly well.
Perfect. So in fact, we celebrated our centenary as ILO Co-op last year and turned 101 this year. And this year is the United Nations International Year for the Elimination of Child Labor, something close to your heart and that of Hans. And this is an area where we are keen to work with cooperatives, especially agricultural cooperatives, have developed some orientation and awareness raising tools and tested them in countries like Tanzania. It would be great to see some collaboration there with WeEffect and VIN colleagues. So at the ILO, in coming to your question, we work on cooperatives guided by this recommendation, international standard on the promotion of cooperatives. And this was adopted in 2002. It's a very accessible one. And we also have a guideline on it that was developed by a German lawyer, co-op lawyer, Hagen Henry, who has recently retired from the Ruralia Institute in Finland. And this recommendation, since it was adopted, 110 countries used it to revise their cooperative laws. So it's a very good reference. And if you were to ask me what is the country that has closely aligned its legislation, cooperative legislation, to this recommendation, I would say Portugal. But of course, we have to be careful. You know, this was the Portuguese law right before the last one, and the new one is a little bit more toward demutualization. And then the cooperative law is not enough. You asked more the enabling environment. And of course, there, for instance, tax law is very important. So you may have a good co-op law, but then the tax law does not create a level playing field. And when you're talking about cooperative identity, so I want to take this a little bit back to that. A good cooperative law needs to translate the cooperative principles and values that were actually highlighted in the ICA 1995 Cooperative Identity Statement, which is to be reviewed, is being rethought this year. It needs to translate that into a law. And for instance, to give you an example, cooperative principle 1 is on autonomy and independence. So the law then needs to translate this as governments, political parties not interfering or controlling cooperatives and their governance and membership. So if you were to say, okay, which countries are doing well on this? Countries with longer tradition of establishing, institutionalizing cooperatives, for instance, those in Europe, are better at keeping, with having governments keep their hands off cooperatives. But there are still struggles in countries in Asia, Arab states, where government envisions co-op as a development tool, okay, but then decides to, you know, meddle in it, and it's bored and whatnot. So this is of course a challenge. Another element that's important is, yes, there are these global principles, but then we need to really decolonize cooperative laws and make sure they are national context, local context specific. And for instance, this needs to be a very participatory process where you draft a new cooperative law, but then consult with the stakeholders. We are working, for instance, in Jordan now with a multi-stakeholder committee in helping them draft this national cooperative strategy, but then it will have to be go to each and every locality for it to be tested, prioritized to see. And then, of course, there are some perfect laws that were like made in the 1970s, and they were perfect then, but then now they are totally out of context. Like they may have been laws that did not allow agricultural cooperatives to engage in international trade. And how can you, in 2021, imagine, you know, agricultural cooperatives not being able to be a part of a global, you know, supply change? So updates, you can do these big overhaul, the perfectest law for now type updates, but then the problem is getting political will there. So there are countries which have gotten stuck with these perfect new laws for tens of years without being able to pass them through, Sri Lanka or Palestine. And then there are those that do it incrementally, like, okay, I'll fix this part because I don't have political will, then I will see if I can fix the next part, and so on. So Vietnam is one of those countries that has done this incremental one. And then, of course, there are even best of laws are not enough when they are not implemented and turned into practice with institutions, advisory services, training, financing. On that, we have many good, of course, regions around the world with that kind of package of implementation, activation in place, like Quebec in Canada, Emilia-Romagna in Italy, Basque Country in Spain. ICA report on cooperatives and development and employment has some very good other examples of that. And finally, the law often comes after the reality. Like, we are now going through a pandemic, and there is cooperative, new emerging cooperative responses organically from the ground up. And it will take a while for these to actually see the law happening. For instance, in Argentina, during the 2001 financial crisis, workers took over bankrupt workplaces to continue the work. And it was these empresas recuperadas that took another maybe 10 years before they saw a law. Italy, social cooperatives came about. And it was not for another 10 years before the law. Japan had worker co-ops for quarter century, and they just had a law passed like last December. So I think, there's that kind of time lag. Now in Turkey, my own home country, we have social cooperatives coming right and left. There is, need for local community action, and there's no regulation around it. It's happening, and they're finding ways, but it will probably be some time. And finally, I would like to say, there are regional cooperative laws like Mercosur Common Cooperative Law Statute or Framework Law for Latin America, OHADA, West African Uniform Law. And there's one under development in East Africa from the region where you were before, Hans. But again, this goes back to the point. These are quite nice regional laws, but then there's quite a bit of issues with implementation of these regional unified laws. That's it from me for this one. Pia, back to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Simel. Thank you. Let's continue with the global view before Gordon has now joined us. We'll then look at the situation in Sweden with Camilla and Gordon. But let's go to Mark now, because Mark, you work with the International Cooperative Alliance, present in 100, or members from 109 countries. I think there's more than 300 members in total of the Cooperative Alliance. 4 of them are Swedish, as I know. So most of the cooperatives we work with, We Agroforestry and WeEffect, they are not members directly of ICA, but how could they anyway benefit of the work you're doing? Could you tell us something about what's in there for them from you?
Thank you, Hans. Yeah, sure. Indeed. On the one hand, I would say definitely the fact, of course, the International Cooperative Alliance representing, promoting the cooperative model at the global level has actually an impact on the whole cooperative movement. Maybe now in the relations with the international institutions. I mean, you mentioned in your introduction the example of the European Commission. Of course, all the directives or regulations coming out from the European Commission ensuring a level playing field for cooperatives. They don't benefit only the members of the ICA, but they benefit, in this case, the European cooperative movement, or if it's external policy, also with a broader view. And that's the same for the African Union. That's the same for UN institutions, etc. And of course, we don't do this also alone. I mean, with great partners like ILO Coop or other international institutions or other civil society organizations as well, who see the benefits of a different governance model in social and economic activities. Maybe I could pick 2 concrete examples very, very shortly, which we are and we have been developing over the past years, and which are actually open source and publicly available. And one is very closely linked to what Simel just presented, which is working on the enabling environment, which is so important. Simel mentioned already the 193 and the 1995 ICA, etc. But working actually on the enabling environment for cooperatives is something which is really crucial. And we have been now since 3-4 years worked with national experts, with our members in the different countries, with other partners like universities, etc., to look actually into the enabling environment. And you can, I will put that now in the chat. We developed actually an online map, and you can find already interesting data actually on around 80 countries from across the world on the cooperative sector. And there is a specific view also in the legislation, in the cooperative legislation. And you don't need to be a lawyer to understand it. Actually, it's really done in a quite pragmatic way. It's a short national report. It's done by a national expert, but it's done together also with the cooperative movement of the country. And it's actually also not only looking into which sectors can be easily developed or not in the country, maybe energy or credit or worker cooperatives, but it's also looking a bit more into the cooperative friendliness of the country. So, and it's a great tool also for, of course, unions and federations to do advocacy work to improve the legislation or the enabling environment of the country. I'm going to post that link now with the fancy looking world map in the chat. And the second example is actually it's a tool that we are developing currently. We have launched it actually in September. It's completely open source. It's a hub, it's a database for cooperative development tools, meaning for everybody interested in setting up a cooperative, in being a mentor, in being a trainer, for supporting cooperatives to be set up. They can actually use that portal. It's completely open source. It's a bit working like Wikipedia. That's why it's called actually Coopedia, where tools can be uploaded. There is a peer review by other people from the network, and then they are being published. And this search engine, and we are going actually now to the next step, will be in the future easily to be put actually on a website of an organization. So it's like a Google search where you can then actually go to and find these development tools. And we are actually prototyping this now, and one of the organization prototyping it in Sweden is Companion. We are in the final phase with Companion on that. So I hope that we will see Coopedia also having a boom in Sweden and having that community grow. I will post the two links actually in the chat, and I hand back over to you, Hans.
Thank you so much, Mark, for this. And yeah, you're going to post those links here. And good, I see that already in the chat, the discussion is ongoing between Nora and Simel and Sigrid and others. So kind of guest speakers, when you see a question to you, please answer in the chat because time is a bit limited. Pia, will you continue?
Yeah,
Gordon has joined now.
We go to Gordon and welcome, Gordon. We are very, very happy that you managed to get in to our meeting. You are working in Sweden and you are working to support people who want to start business in a cooperative form. To me, I think that the root of the cooperatives very often are that people see challenges that they want to solve, and if this is a way of finding a solution. Can you give us some examples of one or two where cooperatives today have contributed to solving problems or challenges for people in Sweden? Is it relevant still?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm Gordon. I'm actually elected chairman of Companion, and Companion, except for now developing the Coopedia, we are approximately 120 advisors, consisting in all the 25 counties of Sweden. We are owned and ruled by our members, which are approximately 1,200 different members, all from municipalities who wants to support cooperative development to cooperative businesses. But mainly our main aim is to start up new cooperative activities or firms or companies. I will briefly highlight 3 examples, very briefly, just to show, because I've asked to be short, and I will be very short. So I will mention them by name and tell a bit about how they solve the challenges that they are facing at the moment. And they are all 3 villages, so it's like societal cooperatives based in the village in order to change the nature of the village, of living and acting and being a citizen in that local area. But first, I will say that yes, of course, from the beginning, cooperative development and cooperative organization were a solution for challenges that we face that the public sector or the commercial private sector does not really have the solutions for. Today, I would like to say that from Coompanion side, we see that increasingly more of the firms or companies that we are starting in cooperative companies are actually not in that sense just answering for a challenge, but rather they find the way of organizing in a cooperative way the best way of actually running businesses today, where the capital is quite cheap, quite easy to get, but people to be involved in the business structure is quite hard to get. And the cooperative form of organizing we find is very, very good. But I will just start with 4 really big areas where we have challenges in Sweden and where we have a cooperative boom at the moment. The first one is broadband. We are building high-speed internet connection all around Sweden, and we have this global, this national aim of making it to 100% of all citizens in Sweden should have fast broadband, which is also a welfare issue, because today we are getting rid of the national agencies, local and regional, and also welfare systems. So we need to have a high-speed internet. And here we have over 1,000 cooperatives that are now building their own internet because the public or the conventional private companies do not find it as good. So that's one. The other one is petrol stations and food shops. We have a lot of examples where especially in the rural area, where people are getting together in order to start new consumer cooperatives, taking over the services local and regionally. But we also have this welfare, childcare, elderly care, and healthcare, where we have good examples of people in different areas, both in urban areas and rural areas, who actually start and runs their own care businesses. But I will tell you a little bit these 3 examples that I promised to say. And we have several of these examples where societies have reversed the trend of bringing people together in innovative cooperative solutions. We have a trend in a lot of places in Sweden with depopulation, where people is moving out from and moving into the urban areas. And my first example is from Skåne, in the south part of Sweden, and a place called Röstånga. And in Röstånga in Höörs kommun, we saw how the emigration trend led, amongst other things, to the fact that schools were threatened, closure, and properties were left to decay. And in Röstånga, they managed to reverse this trend by joining forces and save and develop the village. The villages around this Röstånga village is still struggling with school, with preschool, with grocery stores, with different things. But in Röstånga is flourishing like never before. Today they run preschool, they run a microbrewery, they run an art gallery, and everything is run together in this village. And the phenomenon is becoming more common in Sweden's countryside. Another example is the village of Tvärålund, and this is in the northern parts in Västerbotten, close to Umeå, where companies moved out of this village. There was a big industry that moved from the village, and every 3rd house were abandoned. Nobody lived there. People that lived there, they couldn't get loan on their houses, so therefore they couldn't renovate their houses. And they went together in a cooperative, and they talked to the municipality, and together with the municipality, they actually built a platform for the train to stop. and they changed this trend of people moving out. And now, instead of that every third house is abandoned, citizens can take the loan on their houses and they renovate their houses, and new houses are built. And local form and abandoned industry is now an enterprise hotel fully rented to different small enterprises. And an all activity house is built for the kids to enjoy, because families has actually moved into this village, and the village is really flourishing. And across the country, we see now different cooperative solutions based on local needs, where they actually develop, run businesses, and take care of their house. My last example is the community cooperative of Skålands Byaråd Ekonomisk Förening. That's a cooperative in Sweden. So it's Skåland, which is in Jämtland. And despite the trend of showing increasingly depopulation in sparse populated areas in Sweden, Skåland Byaråd Cooperative makes it possible to live and work in this really sparse populated area of Sweden. And thanks to the community cooperative that runs the entire village. So they build this cooperative together, and today they have 7 employees in this cooperative. And we should know that this is a village of 150 people living there, and they employ now together 7 people. What they are doing is that they do the fiber, the high-speed internet. They have water supply together. They secure the water supply for the village. They are running the street lights. They are running preschool. They are running gyms for workout. They are running a bathing area. They are running a passenger ferry in order to get to the village. They have real estate services and a leisure center. And this is just few of all the activities that they are doing together in this cooperative. And if that's not enough, the village also have a 24-hour unmanned grocery store that they are running in this cooperative. And why I chose these 3 areas is also in a macro perspective, and not only in Sweden, we also see that lack of empowerment, lack of influence from people in local and regional areas, especially in sparse populated or rural areas of Sweden, actually increase anti-democratic thinking and anti-democratic movements. So the cooperative way of solution is not only for the challenges that they are facing in the region or in the village, it's also a way of increasing democratic impact on a national base together. So that's, but we are doing a lot. This is just the examples from that I wanted to show a bit about what Coompanion is doing for citizen cooperatives.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you so much, Gordon. Maybe you can post a link with if you have on the website any information of these cooperatives examples that could be really good for people to read on and get inspiration from. Let's continue in Sweden. Camilla Superwoman Lundberg-Ney, Managing Director of Cooperative Sweden. I heard that Cooperative Sweden recently made a survey on the future of cooperatives and what you think about cooperatives in Sweden. Could you share some highlights from your research with us?
Yes, I'd be glad to. And thank you for the opportunity to be here in my other capacity then as Manager Director for Cooperative Sweden. That's an organization that is in the Swedish context quite unique as it both unites both the consumer cooperative, producer cooperative, housing cooperative and mutual insurance companies. And in this report that you're referring to, we collected data from, it's another report that I wanted to start with another report where we have collected data from the 100 largest cooperative and mutual companies in Sweden. And together their turnover sums up to almost 500 million Swedish kronor, which is equivalent to about 10% of Swedish GDP. And needless to say, the cooperative sector is significant for Swedish business. Many Swedes are also members in cooperative companies. An ordinary Swede would spend as much as 1/5 of their household spendings on products from cooperatives or mutual companies. Despite this, very few know much about cooperatives or their uniqueness. And when searching for the reason why people have such little knowledge, there are plenty of different reasons why, but we turn to the education system. And we read through 271 syllabuses for studies in economics,
law and political science. And we found that none whatsoever mentioned cooperatives or mutuals. Knowledge about limited companies, aktiebolag in Swedish, are on the other hand incorporated as a common thread in several courses in law and business administration. With this lack of knowledge in higher education and people in general regarding cooperatives, Sweden risks falling behind, missing out on the opportunities within this growing international movement that are now even more looking for value-driven companies and diversity in form of ownership. And with this background in mind, your question is very relevant. I mean, will cooperatives have a future in Sweden? So we asked Kairos Future, an international consulting and research company well known for their reports and knowledge about values and attitudes among different generations, and especially young people. So we were interested in finding out what kind of changes and ongoing sociological processes shapes the condition for cooperative and mutual companies from now until the year 2030. And a disclaimer, this report focuses on people living in Sweden, and I therefore would like to place this answer in this Swedish context. So when we looked into younger generation values, they highlighted the fact that many young people in Sweden shows that they want to escape the uncertainty of the gig economy. Instead, they were attracted and are attracted to companies that are responsible, sustainable, and secure. And they also have very high demands on companies' sustainability work. And this, in fact, is a perfect match with cooperative values. Cooperative companies regard profit as a mean and a tool to produce value for their members. Profit is not the main goal. Rather, cooperatives push themselves to put people and our planet before profit. And I could talk on and on a long time about this, but just to sum up, I also wanted to mention that this report from Kairos Future also showed that young people are very interested in starting businesses and they want to start them together. And this is also a perfect match with the whole idea of cooperatives. And this is also to be found in the heart of WeEffect and Agroforestry's work. We might face big obstacles, but if we do it collectively, together, we can move mountains. Yeah. Back to you, Hans.
Thank you so much, Camilla. This is really interesting, and it might be interesting to ask Kairos Future to look at the global arena with the same question as a step 2 of this research. Anyway, maybe some of the WeEffect countries. I have one question that I would like to put to all of you, but if you could be extremely brief, because we have very, very little time, because I cannot miss having Lotta Folkesson, our new chair, coming in at the end, and I will absolutely honor your 10 minutes. So I will cut when it's 10 to, but we are living now in the time of COVID. Extreme challenges in the whole world, and the whole arena is changing. The challenges, the solutions, etc., are changing. What do you see? How can cooperative solutions be a response? One of the responses to the challenges we have as an impact of COVID. 1 minute per person, and who wants to kick off? I think Simel, I see that you are really eager to answer this question, so please. Quickly come in.
Historically, we see values of cooperation, mutualism, self-help, and solidarity witness a surge in popularity during times of crises. This is including financial crises, natural disasters, and this time of the global pandemic is no different. Especially on the social development front. Cooperatives have really stepped up to the plate, providing relief to the workers, members, communities. And so it's very important that government measures launched in response to the crisis take into account cooperatives as players in social development. Including them in community response strategies, however, for social development is not enough, because they are also economic actors and they have also suffered from this process. So their inclusion in financial relief packages is also necessary. And the tendency is often to see co-ops as a crisis response, immediate, short-term kind of actors. And what's important is to emphasize that they should not be seen only as short-term actors for crisis response, but as long-term partners for improving resilience in their communities, which is needed for the long haul, because we are, guess what, going from one crisis to the other. And two types of cooperatives can be inspirational in coming out of the crisis. One is restructuring of struggling enterprises into worker cooperatives, especially in the case of bankruptcies. We have some guidelines around this. Italy, Spain, Quebec are good at doing this. And then platform economy and organizing in the platform economy. Now that we are living through this surge in digitization, how can we also organize cooperatives to better take advantage of these online apps, and those who are being really disadvantaged through these crises, losing jobs, incomes, etc., to use the platforms, open access, Creative Commons type platforms. So the whole platform cooperative realm is one that could be tapped into. Back to you, Pia.
Super, thank you so much, Simel. Mark from ICA, how are you discussing this very, very shortly?
Very, very shortly. Yeah, recovery, reconstruction. I think indeed, as a starting point, the cooperative today, and we see it also. Yeah, sometimes it's a bit also a hidden giant. I mean, in the end, there are so many cooperatives across the globe. I saw somewhere in the chat also the cooperation between cooperatives has been mentioned. I think also, of course, as Simel mentions, we go from one crisis to the other, definitely. But there comes also an opportunity with it somehow, because we have really an urgent need to rethink our economy, to rethink how actually this recovery period and this reconstruction is going to happen. And I see actually in cooperatives, there is a huge opportunity. And in cooperatives and other democratically owned, controlled organizations, because that is actually where the added value for the local communities can be constructed. So I really hope, and I wish also, that the cooperative community gets even closer together, not just by itself, but getting closer together, including other partners, and that we can really bring an alternative actually to the table for this reconstruction phase, which brings hope and which brings a more egalitarian redistribution of wealth, etc.
Thanks so much. Gordon, do you have something going on in Sweden on this link to COVID?
Yes, absolutely. And I think what I ended with is the most important at the moment, because in all crises you will have this trend of non-democratic movement, and we see that in Sweden, we see that all over the world. And the cooperative way I believe that we need a diversity of solutions, of course, but normally, and especially maybe in Sweden, because we have that situation that we seek the solutions either in the public sector or in the commercial private sector, and the cooperative sector is not really part of the solution. But I think that especially when it comes to the principle of democracy, member control, and the empowering of people in the cooperative way, this is crucial in order to create a better world after the COVID-19 as well. But I think that at all we need a diversity of solutions, and I'm sure that the cooperative sector and the cooperative movement has a very important and a crucial role to play in order to fill the gap after the COVID-19.
Thank you. I think, well, time is running out. We have quite interesting examples, I would say, in WeEffect. And I would like to urge you who have example to maybe share them either in the chat or afterwards to Hans and myself, because I think it's super interesting now and important to gather these experiences. I will give you one from Guatemala myself, where I live, where some villages where WeEffect is working, there is a quite serious food crisis, partly or mainly linked right now to the COVID crisis and the lockdown that we have lived. And women there have joined together to buy food from female farmers and then cook the food together and distribute it a couple of times per week, some days per week, so that people, particularly children, get some food, some good food, nutritious food, at least some times per week. And that is one example, and we have many more, but it would be fantastic if we could gather them and publish them on Workplace. We can maybe open up a special little group for that, those good examples, because I know they are there. I can see many in my own region, and I'm sure that also Africa and Asia and the Middle East have similar examples. Before giving the floor to you, Lotta, Hans will just say one thing.
Yes, I have an announcement to make, but also Camilla, can you answer that question? I think you forgot.
Sorry, Camilla. Do you have some thoughts around COVID and solutions, cooperative solutions?
Well, I will be very brief. I will just mention also that there is a new report by the International Cooperative Alliance, the World Cooperative Monitor. They have one chapter that explores the cooperative response to the COVID crisis. And to sum it up, it sort of highlights that despite the huge impact that the health crisis has had, cooperatives have proven both resilient and innovative. So that could be a good reference also to sort of explore. I mean, we don't have the full story yet, but I really think that might be what comes out of this.
Okay, so here comes my announcement, where Pia and myself, we squeezed in too many questions in this session. So we will take one of the questions and put it on the chat instead, and ask our guest speakers, Simel, Gordon, Mark, Camilla, to answer a question. What would you like to see more of from WeEffect and WeAgro4Ec? Give us a challenge. You know us very well, and you know what you can expect from us. So please give us a challenge. And over then to Pia and Lotta.
Yes, Lotta, I must say, first of all, welcome to our seminar again. We are extremely proud and happy that you were able to come to our seminar, because I know that they were fishing for you in other seminars as well, but now you're here with us, and we think this is the place for you to be a part of the dialogue around our cooperative identity. So I would like to ask you to just to reflect a little bit around what have our speakers been sharing this morning or afternoon, and how do you see that, and then how also maybe a little bit on where do you see WeEffect going when it comes to it, or where would you like it to go when it comes to its cooperative identity. So over to you, Lotta.
Thank you, and hello everybody. It's really nice to be here today. So I'm really happy that you have me today, and I also want to start to say thanks to the Swedish cooperatives, because we have the Swedish co-ops, we can be here today and have this seminar, because I want to also remind you all that WeEffect is founded by the biggest co-ops in Sweden. So we have a really big co-op history, so to say. And thank you so much to Mark and Gordon and Camilla and Simel for giving us these good examples. And I also want to say to you, Gordon, I live 4 kilometers away from Tvärålund, and I can give you evidence for that. The co-ops have really developed that village, and also made this big multinational Komatsu Forest to invest in that. It's a small village, but it's vibrant now, thanks to the village co-op. So I can really ensure it's good. And I also want to say that if you go 90 years ago, Sweden was a very poor country, really poor country. And at that time, the Swedish farmers and the forest owners came together through co-ops and strengthened themselves. And it was a really big part to take Sweden out of poverty. And when I listen to you, I also see that you have a lot to learn about co-ops. Many people don't have a really low knowledge about it. And in Sweden, it's very popular today to speak about shared economy. But I will say it's quite the same. But some of them think co-ops is more old-fashioned, but it's the same. So I think it's from my experience through Swedish farmers and Swedish Federation of the Swedish Farmers, it has been the most successful for the Swedish farmers to reach profitability and grow and be strengthened. And before I went to this seminar, I asked some of my farmers friends who also are owners some of them by the biggest dairy co-op in the world, Arla Food, what it means, the farmers' cooperations means to them. And they all answered to me that this farmers' cooperation means profitability, economic growth, poverty reduction, food security, rural development. But otherwise, the cooperative is just like any other businesses. It needs to ensure farmers' interest. It needs to be effective and competitive, or it goes out of the business. So I think we also have to have the business oriented mind also when it comes to co-ops. So I think it's a good way to reduce poverty. And I want to give you a challenge. I want to open your minds and think how you can use the cooperative model in your activities when it comes to reduce poverty in both in region and also in the head office in Stockholm, because I think we have a lot more to do and a lot more to learn. So that's my challenge to you. And I also saw in the chat that a lot of good examples was in Swedish, but Camilla, I think we can find some good examples also to spread it in English in this group afterwards. Because we have Lantmännen, Arla Food, a lot of, and we also have the forestry sector, the Swedish forestry cooperatives also have really good examples to show, because I think the value of also is, the first thing is to start a co-op, and then in Sweden the farmers and the forestry owners also own the value chain, so they own the dairy and can take the profitability in all pieces when it comes to the consumers. So that's my challenge to you. Learn a lot more about the benefits to work through co-ops and use it in your activities in the future.
Oh, that's fantastic. We take it very seriously, Lotta. But now, as you have just stepped in as a chair, I understand but at least we were informed about the switch of the change on the 20th of January, which is a very good day for switch of governance. But how do you have a vision? Because you are not new to WeEffect. You have been working with us. You have been on our board for many years. Do you have a vision on? Do you think we need to change to strengthen our cooperative identity, and how, if so, how should we do that as an organization?
Oh, do we have 2 hours more? Yes, I have vision.
You actually do have 5 minutes, Lotta.
Yes, 5 minutes. Easy peasy. And now, for me, co-ops has a big place in my heart because it has taken Sweden out of poverty, and we have a lot to learn from that trip, and we also can see the results. So I think we can strengthen our co-op identity for We Effect, because it's a very efficient way to work. And so yes, of course, we should strengthen the co-op identity, because we have a lot more to do, and as I said, a lot more to learn. It can be in small scale and in big scale, because a small co-op can make a really big difference as well as a big co-op. So, and you can have it like Gordon's examples in different kinds. So it can mean a few women in a small village, but it can also be a big manufactory and a dairy production in a big city. So you can use it in the full scale. So it's more, it gives us more possibilities, I think, if you go that way.
Thank you very much. We have not had so many people from our partner organizations participating today. Time is too short. I think we need to really strengthen this dialogue within the organization. I just wanted to, I don't know, I think many of you participated yesterday in the seminar around partnerships, and that is of course another side of the same coin, no? And I was very glad that Gustavo from Uruguay was able to participate, and he brings something always to the table, which I think is very, very interesting. And he's working on housing rights and housing cooperatives in Latin America, and how he together with people, also including people from Sweden, obviously, have how it all started like 40 years ago, 30 years ago, with merging good experiences from Sweden with good experiences from Latin America, and they're developing a very special model built on the two realities, the two contexts, and the two solutions into something new and interesting, and which is still very much alive and kicking and developing, and very, very relevant today in Latin America. So I think that's another very, very interesting example, but it's not only a question of supporting with funding, etc. It's also a question of supporting with ideas and sharing experiences and give and take. From the two sides. I think that is another, and I think it's quite unique, the fact that we have, it is not very often in development cooperation, at least my experience, that we have a shared vision and a shared identity and a shared values as a starting point. It's very often us for you, no? But here we have something in common. I think that's another strength of working with our cooperative identity, because it's as relevant in Sweden as it is in the rest of the world. I don't know, Hans, if you would like to just wrap up. You are the expert and the dean within the organization. So would you like to say some closing words?
Yes, please. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. I'm just thinking that thank you very much, the guest speakers, for all the challenges you are putting on the chat. We can almost write a book with all the challenges. They're really interesting. We need to analyze them afterwards. Thank you for your participation. It's been very useful, and time is very short. I really hope that we can continue in dialogue. And we know where to find you, Simel, and where to find you, Mark and Gordon as well, and Camilla. Lotta, we know for sure where we can find her in a boardroom. I would encourage our country offices, regional offices, to take contact with the ILO Coop section if you look at how you would like to strengthen the cooperatives, support the cooperatives you work with to strengthen them. And also what Mark wrote, you can maybe put the link to the Coops for Dev where we have the mapping of the project that is different members of the Coops Europe Development Platform are doing. So you can see, are there other cooperative development organizations working in your country and then liaise with them and see what they are doing. We need to update the database because it's a bit sort of oldish now, but we will do it. But the dialogue has to continue with all your stuff out in the regions and in the head office. And I have on my desk a task, which is to write a policy paper on cooperative development, which I will do. But I will not write it for WeEffect, WeAgroforestry, without getting your inputs. What would you need to see in that paper? Because it's like if I send out a recipe or how to make a cake and you prefer pancakes instead, that it will be useless for me to produce a paper without your inputs on what you need to see from this paper. So I would like to start that by asking you to, after this session, think about what you've been hearing here and what you've been reading in the chat. And then go back to your Slido page and ask this or answer this question: what do WeEffect, WeAgroforestry need more of to feel that we to 100% are active parts of the cooperative movement and can fully support our partners to shine? Just write your inputs there, but you have to do it today or tomorrow because this Slido poll is only open today and tomorrow. So, but take your time and reflect. And you can also see what others have been writing because it will come up on this screen. Thanks. So thank you, everybody, and let's keep the dialogue running.
Thank you very much. I really enjoyed and I've learned a lot during this short hour, really. The link to democracy, I love, for instance. So thank you so much, and thanks. And we will absolutely keep all the fantastic information that we have received. And please do what Hans has asked you to do. Fill in this, reflect a little bit afterwards and fill it in. It will be very, very useful, particularly for Hans when starting his work on cooperatives or the corporate strategy for WeEffect. So thank you so much. Have a nice day, nice evening for you in Sweden. Y un súper buen día, colegas en América Latina que ya están empezando. Ciao.
Goodbye, everyone.
Ciao.
Thank you very
Bye.
much.
Ciao.
Thank you. Bye.
Ciao.
Thank you so
Bye.
interesting.